So in today's video, I'm sharing the truth about emotional detachment. When is it a healthy boundary and when does it become a form of punishment? But if you're new, my name's Michelle Ferris. I'm a psychotherapist and I love helping people create relationships that work. So what is detachment? Detachment is basically the ability to step back from situations or people that are triggering you so that you can protect your energy and stay calm when there's chaos. This is incredibly valuable in relationship, but depending on how you use it, it can be healthy or harmful. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So for example, when somebody does something you don't like, maybe they're screaming at you, maybe they're making bad choices, maybe they're doing something to someone else that you don't like, you have a choice. You can either try to intervene, and sometimes that's appropriate, or when you know that it's something that you know is not going to change no matter what you say, that's when practicing emotional detachment can be super healthy. Because sometimes when we try to intervene, we can even make it worse. Now, of course, this is not going to be applicable when we see other people being mistreated. Yes, we're going to want to speak up. Detachment is really best used in situations where we have no control. This is someone else's behavior, someone else's choices that we can't affect or change. If you've ever had trouble detaching from someone else, say me too in the comments. This video is going to help. Now, another benefit of detachment is it shows you where the line is between what's your responsibility and what isn't. And usually that line is about what other people are saying and doing. That's where we don't have any control, and we really need to practice good boundaries. And when detachment is healthy, it's a really powerful boundary to have. So why is detachment so important? Because it actually protects you from making a situation worse. So for instance, if somebody is in a really bad mood and they're starting to escalate and yell and say really hurtful things, you may not be able to say, hey, you need to calm down and take a chill pill, because often that can escalate the situation. And that's the last thing I want for you. So sometimes the best boundary you can set is to simply detach and remove yourself and let the situation play out. Now, when is detachment healthy? Detachment is healthy when you are using it to protect yourself from being mistreated. That is when we always want to remove ourselves first or protect people who need it, like small children. That's a really important thing. If somebody is yelling at you, if somebody is calling you names, if somebody is gaslighting you, then detachment is a great boundary because it immediately helps you remove yourself from the situation. Another way detachment can be healthy is to stay out of other people's business. Maybe a friend is sharing something with you that you really disagree with. Maybe it's a hot topic like politics or religion, and you realize there's really no point in sharing your opinion because it's just going to cause a problem. Maybe a friend is having money problems or is having relationship problems, and instead of trying to fix it and give advice, which may not be the best thing to do, we can just listen and show support in another way. Detaching doesn't mean we're cold and uncaring. That may be a really good time to just let that friend or family member have their say and stay quiet. Sometimes you may want to advocate for yourself and say something, and that can depend on how intense the emotions are. If you notice that that person is getting into a rage and not controlling what they're saying or doing, that's when you absolutely want to leave. That's when detachment can be super helpful. Detachment is also healthy when we use it to avoid judgment. Sometimes people are going to say or do things that we really don't like. And that may be a time where we can practice detaching by just being quiet and letting them figure it out for themselves. Detachment is also healthy when we use it to avoid those meaningless arguments that are repetitive. Every couple tends to have certain arguments that they have over and over again. Maybe it's about the kids or maybe it's about the housework. Whatever it's about, you know there's no point in having that discussion because it doesn't go anywhere. So that's where detachment can be super healthy because you're basically accepting the fact that, you know what, this conversation never goes well and I'm just going to practice detachment. Detachment is also healthy when it allows somebody else to experience their own consequences. Like for instance, maybe you love somebody who's an addict or alcoholic, and you really need to let them hit bottom so that they can decide for themselves if they want sobriety. versus us trying to get in there and fix it and control it and tell them why they need to be sober and why it makes sense. Because to an addict or alcoholic, it's not going to make sense. And sometimes people need to learn the hard way by having their natural consequences. If you're finding this helpful, say me too in the comments. Now, let's talk about when detachment isn't healthy and it's actually used as a form of punishment. One way this happens is when we use detachment to give somebody the silent treatment. We ignore them, we're cold, we're wanting to send the message that we're upset without having to say anything. Another way detachment is not healthy is using it to prove your point. Maybe you're not saying anything, but under your breath you're saying, well, I told you so. That was really a stupid thing to do. You're using passive-aggressive or sarcastic comments to make your point, but you're trying to detach by not speaking to the situation directly. That's not going to give you what you want in a relationship. In fact, it's actually going to hurt your relationship. Another way detachment is used as a punishment is when we are trying to make somebody feel bad about their choices. And this can also look passive-aggressive, where we're saying comments like, well, I would never do that. That was a stupid thing to do. So you're trying to detach again by not commenting directly, but it's leaking out in passive-aggressive or frustrating comments that end up hurting your relationship. Another way detachment is unhealthy is if you use it to leave the situation entirely without any form of communication. So you think, I'm done, I'm out, and you think that's detaching because you're leaving the situation. But detachment is not about leaving without saying a word and coming back hours later. That's not practicing healthy detachment. That does send a message, but it's not the message you want to send. Because part of what makes detachment work is that it's a healthy boundary for you to take care of yourself and protect yourself from situations that are triggering you. That's how it can really help you stay calm. So what are some ways you can start detaching? One is create a mantra. And this is a self-soothing statement like, I don't need to react to this. This isn't any of my business. I can show support by listening. Some statement that you can say silently to yourself to help you avoid stepping into somebody else's chaos, because that is going to keep you calm and remind yourself that there are other ways you can show support. Another simple way to detach is to simply say less in the conversation. Let the other person vent or talk as long as they're not being abusive, and find another way to show support. Sometimes we may need to just say, wow, that sounds really hard. I hope this gets better, or how can I help? Asking that question can be a great form of support instead of trying to get in there and fix something that isn't ours to fix. Another simple way to practice detachment is to remember the 3 C's in Al-Anon. You didn't cause it, you can't control it, and you definitely can't cure it. Because there are a lot of situations out there right now that we have no control over, especially if it's about family members, friends, people that we love. Their decisions, their choices, their behaviors are really not something we can change or fix. But when you can practice detachment in a healthy way, you can stay connected without harming yourself. Now, the next step I want you to do is go watch my video on setting boundaries, because that is your next step. Thanks so much.